Hey guys, so I finally put together a coloring tutorial using Paint Tool SAI. You're about to view it, maybe. And here's my kitty cat Pixie. Anyway, what you'll need is some kind of Wacom tablet, or pen tablet. Might not be Wacom, might be an off-brand. That's fine, that'll work. I'll have links on the page so you can see what I use, get something similar. They're not very expensive. And Paint Tool SAI, I also have the link for that. It's like 50 bucks in American dollars. And that's about it. I hope that you enjoy the video. This is my crazy cat Pixie sucking on my shirt. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is open up Missing You Gnomie Homie black and white, no background PNG file. This way you have no white background to interfere. Then we're going to click on that layer. Above the layer, choose Preserve Opacity and Selection Source. Then we're going to add 2 more layers and left click on the layer with our image in it and drag it all the way to the top. Now you can click on the bottom layer and go over to the color palette. That's the circle with the square in the middle, in the top right corner of the screen here, and choose a nice medium tone for your background. What this does is it creates a base for all of the other colors we work with to lay against. So if you do a white background or a black background, it's going to make the colors you use look brighter or darker than they actually are. So then you choose that color. I'm using a dusky sort of pink, and you flood fill that bottom layer. So the next thing we're going to do is go to the middle layer, and then we're going to take the selection tool with transparency, fuzzy, select it down below, and selection source, select it down below, and anti-aliasing, select it. And we're going to select just outside of the gnome. Make sure you get any little spots like in his beard there. And then we're going to go out to selection and choose increment 1 and then invert. Now we're going to go in and choose back into the color wheel and choose a color that is representative of the skin tone we want our gnome to have. You can do a brown, a darker brown, a medium brown, or a light brown. You can do more of a peachy beige color. I'm going for sort of a beige color here to create more of a Caucasian gnome. So you go in and you just use the bucket tool and flood fill the selection that you made. And the next thing we're going to do is go in with the brush, just fill in any little spots the bucket tool might have missed, and then create a new layer, and then mark up above there, make that layer a clipping group. Now what that means is the clipping group will keep that layer. You can color outside the lines of the gnome on that layer and it will not show. It keeps everything within the lines. And what we're going to do here is start laying down flat colors for the different parts of the gnome. And the first thing we do is use the selection tool just like we did for the skin color, and we're going to choose the hat, the patches, and the pants. We're going to add a new layer. We're going to flood fill with a nice warm color. I chose sort of a orangey red, peachy red sort of color. Next we'll add a new layer, and for this I went with sort of a yellow, and this is what color we're going to do his jacket in. Use the selection tool again. Remember to increment 1, flood fill or bucket tool. Sorry, I'm used to other programs I've used before. And then go in and make sure you're filling in any little areas you might have missed, like down here in his beard. Yep. And I know this is kind of fast. It took me 46 minutes to color this gnome, and I know a lot of people don't want to sit through 46 minutes of a tutorial, so I'm just trying to, so I don't really want to slow too much of this down. so I'm trying to speed through it, but you guys are welcome to ask questions in the comments, and I will try to get back to them as soon as I can. So the next thing we're going to do is his beard. I'm doing a white beard, but I don't want it to be pure white. I set the saturation completely down. That's where you see HSL under the color box. That's the S. And then I took the L and I put it just below the top part. So it's not completely light, but it's pretty light. And then we do just like we did before. We take the magic wand tool, we click inside the beard, we go up to selection and choose increment 1, and then we use the bucket tool to click inside the selection area. Okay, then we just go in, go through, make sure we're cleaning everything, getting any spots we missed. Now, new layer, make sure you choose clipping group again. And we're going to do the boots using the selection tool, going in again, clicking in the parts of the boots we want to color, going into selection up at the top, choosing increment 1, finding a color we like. I want to do some brown leather boots, so we're going into the brown colors, choosing brown, choose whatever brown you like. It doesn't have to be the same brown I'm using. Go in, use the bucket tool, fill it. This is what's called laying down your flat colors or your base colors or your foundation colors. We're repeating all of this again. New layer, make it a clipping group. Use your selection tool, which is your little wand up there. Click inside the areas you're going to color. Make sure you go into selection and do increment 1. Use the bucket tool, fill those areas. See, this is really the easiest part, right? As you can see, I missed a spot in the boot. Just remember, come in later and fill it in, as I'm doing here. But make sure you're on the right layer. Go back down to the boot layer. All right, next thing. Let's do the heart, or maybe we'll do the bottom of the boots. Let's see. Yep, we're going to do the heart. So for the heart, I didn't want it to be the same color as the hat and the patch and the jean and the pants. I wanted to do sort of a cooler pink. So we went over to, yep, there we go. I just wanted to stand out a little bit from his hat. You know, you wanted it a little bit different than the other reds in the image. But we did everything exactly the same. Now we're going to go down, same process again. Magic wand tool, click inside the area you want to color, click on selection, increment 1, bucket tool, click, and there you go. The bottom of the boot is done. Now we're going to go in and fill in the little hardware on the boot. And we're going to use sort of a gold color. You can make yours silver or however you like. Just play around, find colors that you like. You can make them brown if you want. It's your gnome. You make them however you want to. Alright, and from here we're going to merge the foundation colors. That's everything besides the outline and the background. Okay, do not merge the outline or the background. Okay, and then let's add a new layer, and this is where we're going to start giving our little Gnomie Homie some dimension. So go back over here and let's start finding a nice gray value to start shading with. So in your new layer, go over to your brush tool, pick a nice big brush. I think I'm using like 20 here. You might want to do 30 or 40, depends on how big you're working, and just start adding shadows in areas that would be towards the back or maybe behind something. You want to add shadows in the folds of his hat, under his nose, along the sides here, lots of places. You want bigger, thicker shadows because we're gonna blend this out and make them softer. They're not gonna stay thick like this. I mean, you can keep them thick like this and it would look pretty cool, I think, but for my particular style, I like a lot of soft shadows. I think it looks more painterly, and so that's what I go for. So just keep going in, adding shadows where I have them or where you feel like they should go. That's pretty much all you have to do. I'm not going to run my mouth too much here. So now we're going to go ahead and hit watercolor, and then again with a bigger brush, about 50, you want to make sure that you have dilution set up to like 90, blending set to like 17, perseverance down on the lower level 2, and then just go through and sort of blend that color that you laid down out. Basically what we're doing is blending it out. That's what we're doing. We're softening it up, blending it out. Do it however much you feel comfortable with. At this point, you probably want to do more rather than less, because we'll come in later and do more shadowing. Excuse me. As you can see, I went over into filters. Up at the over on top of the layers, you can see mode. I changed it to shade with the little drop down, and then I put the opacity down. I think that's 70%, but play with it until it's somewhere that you like. And now I'm going in and I'm just doing more blending and softening with the watercolor brush. And that's all there really is to it at this point. Then I'll go back and forth between the brush tool and the watercolor tool, adding more brush work, softening it up with the watercolor tool, until I have basically the first layer of shade in. And so yeah, that's what that's how I do this first little bit. Bringing in some shadow from the side there. Yep, and that is how I do the first layer of shading. I'm gonna just kind of zip through this a bit so we can move into more shading, but I don't want you to you know, I don't want you to miss out on some other stuff because the video has gone on too long for your patience. So now, as you see, we're just doing some more shading. I've sped it up some so that this, we don't have to do a whole hour-long video, but you're probably not working this fast. I wasn't working this fast. So just adding more shading, laying the brush in. Feel free to pause the video so you can see all of my settings over here on the bottom right and emulate them yourself. After we do this first layer and we go in and we blend it all out, we're going to stay on the same layer, add some more brush, and then go over and blend it some more with the watercolor. Just to make sure we have it at this right boldness or whatever that you want it. Just make it where it looks good to you. That's what's most important. You see here it's getting, I wanted it a little darker, so I had a little more brush and I blended it a little less. And now we're going to start with some highlights. We're going to go down to the layer with the flat colors on it, and we're going to add a new layer. We're going to make sure that's a clipping group, and we're going to go and set our color to sort of a yellow color. We're basically pulling one of the brighter colors out of the flat colors, so we just want a yellow, but not the exact same yellow. Alright, now let's get our brush tool in and just start throwing in some little highlights in any rounded areas, any areas that protrude. It doesn't have to be neat because we're going to go in and blend this just like we did the shading. So, don't worry too much about perfection or anything else like that. And now that I look at this, I realize I didn't really use a yellow, but you could use a yellow or you could use this beigey color I used. It doesn't matter, because we're going to go in and change this to luminosity, and we're going to lower the opacity to something that we like. I think I've set it to like 50 or 40, something like that. All right, now we're just using that watercolor tool again and blending it out. Just going with the direction of the curve, you know, go in the direction which the image is drawn. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. You got this, you can do it. And we're really softening up this layer because just like in the shading, we're going to come in and add some more. But we're staying on one layer. I mean, you can do multiple layers if you want to, but I'm trying to keep things simple, since I know probably for a lot of you this might be your first time in Paint Tool SAI, maybe even your first time using a graphics program at all. So this is probably really confusing, and don't, you know, be mad at yourself. You're probably going to have to do this multiple times before you get the hang of any of it, but push through, because it's not as difficult as it seems right now. I know it's difficult right now, but once you get the hang of it, this is going to be so relaxing and so calming and so much easier than it feels right now. You just got to get through the little hump. So we're just going in, adding some more layers, blending it out, same as we did with the shading. Brush tool first to get the color down, watercolor tool next to get it blended out and softened. Now I'm going to play with the luminosity bit with the opacity to see how I like the highlights better. Oh, and now we're going to go in with the watercolor tool and just do little soft dots, little soft circles down in the beard to create some texture. This is where your pressure sensitive pen and tablet tool comes in very handy, because you just want to very softly touch your tablet with that pen. Otherwise you're going to have very glaring dots on your beard. Alright, so let's go in, add some highlights to this jacket or shirt or whatever we imagine this is that he's wearing on his top. It kind of reminds me of a raincoat or something, but it can be whatever you want it to be. Yep, add a little more highlights over here, down on his boots. Get some highlights on those little boot buckles. And we're about to get into the really fun and funky stuff, so just get them highlights in, get them blended out, and get ready, because it's about to get really colorful up in here. Alright, so let's get back down to the layer with our flat colors on it and make a new layer. Yes, make sure we got clipping group checked on. We're going to pick that red that we used in the hat and the patches and the legs, and we're going to start filling in the skin. We're going to make it rosy and fleshy. Go in with your brush, add some blush wherever you want it. Of course the nose should be nice and blushed up. He's got a cherry red nose. Add some to the hands. You know, we're blushing him up. We're making him rosy red Gnome Homie. He's the rosy red Gnome Homie. Alright, add some to those hands. Take your watercolor brush out, blend it out. As you can see, we're doing the same thing over and over and over again. You're getting lots of practice with that brush tool and the watercolor tool. It's a lot of the same stuff. You're doing good. Now add a new layer. Make sure it's got clipping group on. We're using that same red, and guess what? We're going to add red shadows to the yellow coat. This might not have entered your mind, right? You're like, what? Why are we adding red to yellow? We're not trying to make orange. No. But what we're trying to do is just be stylistic. Pull some more of that red throughout. Maybe this jacket's kind of reflective. I don't know. Uh-oh, now we're putting some red in the boots. We're getting really crazy. No problem, because you know what? We're not trying to be super realistic. We're just having fun, and we're being colorful. And Gnomie Homie likes to be colorful, just so you know. So add some red to them boots, blend it out, make it fun. That's what this is all about. Oh boy, time to add some rosy cheeks, because we can't see Gnomie Homie's cheeks, but we know they're rosy, and they're so rosy you're going to see them right clear through that beard. You just watch. But we want to put that layer above the highlights because we didn't like seeing the highlights through them. So let's pull it up, make a new layer, drag it above the highlight layer. You remember how to do that? You left click, pull it up. Now we're going to add the blush, blend it out really cute because we want it to just be soft. There we go, nice and soft blush. Oh, he's so pretty. Isn't he pretty with his little blush on his cheek? His beardy cheeks. This next part is really important. There's a special way you have to merge filtered layers that you've made with filters, or you will lose the effect in Paint Tool SAI. You have to go to the filtered layer and merge it directly down to the base colors. I've slowed it down here for you to show you. You click on the layer right above the base layer and merge down. Click on the layer right above the base layer and merge down. Again and again until you have all of the layers with the shadow and luminosity merged directly down to the base layer. If I did not explain that right, hopefully the image has showed you what I. So now we're going to start on the outline, and we want the outline to not be black, right? Because we want it to match the rest of the colors. And this is why we have the outline set to preserve opacity and while selection source was for something else. At this point you may want to make a copy of your outline layer. I don't know why I forgot to. I pretty much always do, but I didn't today. Not sure why. Anyway, so take your marker tool, take your eyedropper tool first and choose like the darkest color in your shadows, and then make it a little darker on the lightness bar. And then take your marker tool, set it to how, I don't know, like 50 or 30 or 40, something that's a good big range, and go in and just start coloring over your outline. You may find areas where you need it to be a little darker or a little lighter to look good. Go in and make it darker and lighter for those areas. Be careful when you're coming near where the lines intersect and you're going to have other colors. You don't really need to worry about it in the first part of the image that you're outlining. You can always fix it up when you're coming in later with more colors, but you know, later on you'll want to pay closer attention to that. As you can see, this is probably a pretty easy part, but it is also the most detailed part. You can also just not worry about it too much and just use the same outline color for the whole thing, because it really doesn't make a massive difference. Sometimes you know, stylistically you can use like a light brown for all of your outlines, or a dark brown or purple, and you can really do some interesting things with that. Here I am doing, you know, a cooler red for the heart outline, and then I stuck with a darker red for the pants outline. Something I do notice in Paint Tool SAI is for whatever reason, whether I'm using the marker or the brush tool, I mean, I may have to play around and try some other things. Sometimes it will pick up some other local color, like the gray of the beard or something, and it will bring that in. I have no idea why. I don't know what's going on with that. I'll have to fool around with it, and maybe once I figure it out, I'll explain it to you, teach you some other way in a later tutorial. But for now, I don't know. Just work around it, move your marker in from a different angle to get a pure color. But it's really, it's just not that big a deal. So for the outline of the skin, again, I just went in with the eyedropper tool, pulled a color out of the shading, made it a little darker, and now we're going over the outline of the nose. We'll do the same with the hands. I'm actually going to do the mouth with the outline color for the beard, since it's sitting in the middle of the beard. And yeah, this is pretty much how you do the entirety of the outline. And that is how I color digitally. This is how I paint digitally. It gets a little more complicated with more complex images like the fairies and the various girls that I like to do. But I didn't want to start with something more complex and make things more confusing or difficult. So I thought if I'm going to do tutorials, I'll probably stick with the easier stuff for a little while. Get you guys more comfortable, you know, with this stuff. And then we'll go into more complex stuff. Maybe we'll go into the girls, and then maybe we'll do some landscapes and cityscapes and stuff like that, which can be easy once you know what you're doing, but a little more trying or time consuming maybe at the beginning. So here we are coloring in the hands. Next we're going to go and do the beard, and I just used a gray. You can pull from the shading in the beard. I think I just used the gray that I used in shading for the original shading layer. Whatever really looks good and that your eye can appreciate. Don't stress out about this stuff. It's not a big deal. Remember that anything I'm going to teach you is I'm not teaching you so you can make a profit. I'm not teaching you so you can be the greatest artist ever, because I am not the greatest artist ever. I don't really turn a profit from art. I'm just having fun, relaxing, and hoping that I can help other people have fun and relax and enjoy themselves and feel good, because ultimately that is you know, life is not about making money or being the best. It's about enjoying the moments that we have, enjoying the people in our lives. If you can make something that makes somebody smile, you know, you've done something good with your life. I mean, that's how I feel anyway. I don't know, maybe other people don't feel that way. So I'm just going to speed through the rest, but it's all the same thing as this, and then we're going to get in and I'm going to do a really quick, simple background. So stay tuned. Okay, as you can see, I'm just using sort of a goldenrod yellow to fill the outline of this little jacket. Easy peasy. I'm going to use a darker brown to do his boots, and then a darker gold or goldenrod to do the metal of his boot buckle. And you'll notice that I do the arch in the front, because the front of the boot is in front of the belt or what have you of the boot, so that's not going to be black. It's not going to stay black like the belt of the boot. And then I do brown. Then I totally forgot that I went in and added some more highlights. So we add a new layer, set it to luminosity, lower the opacity to something that we like, probably around 40 to 70% usually. Add some little dots to his eyes with the brush tool. Bring some highlights around the edges of his nose. Blend them out with the watercolor tool. Let's see, I'm playing with the opacity to find something I like. We want that nose to be really shiny. I'm going to zoom out so I can see the big picture. I am using a rusty brown color. I guess it really didn't matter so much here what color I used, because I was going for some pretty bold highlights, and these were showing up really good on the red. And again, these aren't for big highlights. These are really just the final touch highlights. We wouldn't do like across a big swathing highlight for this final part. These are just sort of the little final touch highlights. Yep, just to give it a little more pop, make his skin stand out a little more. As you can tell, like before, if you notice when I add the highlights here, his hands start to come out a little more, because before they were seeming a little recessed to me, like they were back too much, whereas he's holding the heart, you know, in front of him. The yellow of his cloak kind of made it, his coat seemed to come out, where his hands and his heart were kind of coming in because they were darker. So I really felt like I needed some highlights to pull it out. Now we're just blending, just like we did with the highlight layers earlier. Basically, we're just bumping up the highlight some with this layer. I did the wrong thing with the selection tool there, just totally ignore it. Yeah, I don't know why I keep doing it. I really don't. What I'm thinking here. What you should have done is go to, is go to the luminosity layer and choose, yeah, this is what I'm about to do, I hope. There we go. And choose, yeah, there we go. Transparency, fuzzy, selection source, and cut it out. That's exactly right. And now you got all the luminosity that went over the lines, because we no longer had a clipping group, and that got rid of it. So now we added a new layer with a white color on the brush to get some even bolder highlights going, more especially on his eyes and his nose. We're still going to blend it a little bit. Oh, excuse me. Hope I'm not spreading the yawns around. Here we go. I always like the way it looks when you see just like when you take the base color out and you just see the background with the highlight and the shadows on it. Alright, and now we're going to do some final touches before we create the background. To start with, I'm trying to sort out what color do I want his permanent background to be. And I'm trying different greens, trying blues and pinks and browns and everything else. I'm kind of liking this green. I know I want more of a lower saturated value so that way he pops out more. You can go with whatever color you like. I'm really digging this blue right now. It's kind of a toss up between the blue and the green. So I've added a new layer and I'm pulling colors out of his foundation colors, pulling colors out of the image, the character. And I'm creating, this layer is what we're calling a tint, and that unifies all the colors. So I'm trying a green tint. I've added a new layer, I've dragged it to the top, I've used the bucket tool to fill the layer, and I lower the opacity down to like 10 to 15, maybe 20%, and that basically creates a very light tint over the whole image. This will tie all the colors together so that the image is uniform. And I do this with all of my images, and it just keeps it, creates harmony and uniform in the image, and I suggest you try it. And now that we've added a tint and we've decided on our background color, we can go in and play around with adding some texture and color to the background. It's really just a simple background. To be honest, I do a lot of my backgrounds in Photoshop just because it's easier and quicker, and I really focus on the characters. It's what I like to do the most. So just pull a color out of, I pulled this red out of our little Gnomie Homie's hat, and I took my brush tool and I started laying it in on a new layer. And then I pulled the yellow out of his coat and I started adding that in on the same layer with the same brush tool. And then I want to take a blue. Now I took the blue that I used the bucket tool in the background, but I made it more saturated. That way it pops some. So I took the saturation layer, which if you see HSL under the color palette up there, I pulled it all the way over to the right and I laid that in. Now I'm going to take the watercolor tool and I'm going to go in and blend and just smooth this all out, as you can see here. And this makes it sort of a painterly palette type background. Yeah, you want to change the watercolor brush to the same color that you are blending out. Yep, just like that. And don't forget to do the yellow. Another way, if you have Photoshop or maybe Paint Shop Pro, you could do just the same thing I did right here with your brush tool and that, and then apply like a Gaussian blur or smudge tool, something like that. I don't want to, you know, require people to have 5 million different programs. So I'm trying to do everything in Paint Tool SAI. And now we're doing the blue and just smudging that out some more. And yeah, now we're going to have a nice soft painterly background for our little Gnomie Homie. And he would make a really cute little image to send to a friend who you're missing right now, or a family member, because I know I'm missing some people right now, and I bet you are too, and I bet they're really missing you as well. So now we'll go in and we'll add a little vignette, and you're going to add a layer and drag it up so it's below the tint but above all the other layers. And we're just going to take a darker, less saturated blue than the one we used last, and we're going to add it in each corner, and we're going to use the watercolor just to blend it out, just like we've been doing this whole time as we were coloring. Yep, just doing the colors here. And now you can play with the different filters and see if there's something that you like. You can try multiply or shade or luminosity for something bright. Just see what you like. Or you could just leave it as it was. Maybe you like it better that way. And now you might want to save this as a PSD or as a SAI file. And then you can also save it as a JPEG or a PNG, so that you can share it. And that is the Missing You Gnomie Homie tutorial. If you have any questions, please ask in comments. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.